My name is Sam Haney. I'm the Public Relations Coordinator for KU AIAS. And today we have our third and penultimate session for the portfolio push in advance of the portfolio submission deadline for third and fourth year students at KU Architecture. And we have 3 exemplary students with us today who will be sharing their portfolios with us. Jaden, Lydia, and Aaron. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Jaden. I'm about to be a 4th year in the MARC program. I think that's a good introduction.
I'm Erin, and I'm just about to enter my final year in the architecture program.
And I'm Lydia, also about to be a 4th year.
Awesome, thank you guys. So these guys are going to show us their portfolios. They all were recognized in this last year for their portfolio submissions, for the professional portfolio submission. Would one of you guys like to show your portfolio first? We'll have this first half hour for presentations, and then the next half hour will be for a Q&A session.
I can go ahead, if that's cool with y'all.
Thank you.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
I think Olivia will fix that.
Sweet.
Sorry about that. Yes.
I've never run a Zoom meeting. I wouldn't know how to do it. All right. Okay, I'm trying to do full screen mode. How's that?
Perfect.
All right, so I don't really know exactly what to say. I've been working at a firm this summer, which has been a really cool experience, but I haven't had a lot of time. So this portfolio has not changed since I submitted it last, but here it is. So let's get into it. So I kind of kept this color scheme of you can see it a little bit, this yellow, blue, and pink throughout, but mostly everything's pretty white and light. And I use the same font throughout. I don't really know how to talk about this, but I figured this is if you guys are working on portfolios, it makes sense to talk about it in this sense. But anyway, start off with resume and then a little table of contents. And I show 4 different projects and then some drawings at the end, because it's cool when you show other stuff you do. I've seen people do photography and other stuff like sculpture, and it's always just shows that you know how to do more than what you're learning in school. It's interesting. Starting off, I think it's a good idea to start with your coolest, most your project you're most proud of. And this was one of my most recent ones. It's not my most recent anymore, but it was in my fall 3rd year studio where we had to do a museum. And anyway, I don't know if I talk about the project, I'll just kind of show that this is what the graphics look like. But some people like to go chronologically, where it's this is what I did first and then this is my growth, which is also cool. I just like doing this because I picture if it's I'm just gonna click through this. If it's someone looking at it and they don't have a lot of time, they might just look at your first or second project and then put it down. So I thought, start strong. So let me go back a little bit. So I did an exploded axonometric site plan to give an idea of where we're at. And for each project, I did a little description and I talked about what it is, where is it at, and then when I did it. So rendering, just to give you an idea what it looks like. This was kind of fun, and I've gotten some good feedback about this. My design principles that I stuck with, it's just a strong concept I feel can guide the whole thing. But, first floor plan, some more renderings, and I had to fight myself not to do full page renderings of everything, because every time you do a render, it's this thing is gorgeous, I want to show it, but it's calm down and talk about it a little more, because they don't really care that much. They want to see what's it made of and what's it mean, rather than how pretty it is. Wall sections, which was so hard. I hated doing that, I'm gonna be honest, but it looks kind of cool. And another thing that's rough is some of these files are absolutely ginormous, but when I put them on here, I had to condense them a lot. So something like this bottom section is a screenshot from Adobe being open, because it was so huge that I had to do that. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing huge drawings, is don't make them too big. Second off, I had a welcome center which was a difficult project because we did that when we were all at home for the most part because of COVID. So it's like a KU visitor center, something colorful, something fun. Same order of like site plan, and then it goes into that big render, and then first floor plan, and now we're like breaking into like interior renderings. Then we're getting into it a little more, breaking it down. And this was my second year, I think, was it first semester? Yeah, first semester studio we did. Sam, was it first semester?
Yeah, that one was fall 2019.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, so this one I've kept this one in here, even though it's not as like developed. Like I'm telling you, the SketchUp model, like I didn't have a single group. It was all lines and it's a mess and I don't touch it anymore. But I keep it because I got good feedback about this diagram on the right of like uniting the three strong elements of like nature, community, music. So I feel like having like diagrammatic sketches that really show a strong concept carries hard. So had that. Again, site plan back there, some concept, big rendering, and then just, so I kept the same order for the most part. And then for each project, I had like a different kind of color scheme, but it's mostly a lot of white space because architects like their white space. Next, I have, oh, sorry, my roommate just coming home. I had this one's not as serious as a project because it was like a handmade thing. So this is a chapel, and I was just kind of showing like hand skills. And so I still have that project. And then some drawings. That's it. And I kept it around 40 pages. You can do longer or shorter, but I feel like 40 is the sweet spot. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jaden. Let's actually save questions for once each person has presented, and then anybody who wants to ask a question can ask after everyone has presented, and they can ask it to one individual if they wish to. Would Erin or Lydia like to go next?
I can go next. Okay, so you guys can all see this, right? Okay, perfect. So here's just my cover. I tried to keep it really simple. And then I keep this kind of like Jaden, I keep this pink and orange kind of theme throughout. Here's my resume. Again, pretty simple, not very overly complex. I did include kind of like a skills and like interest on the side here. And I think the interest one has actually, people seem to like that. So, because it just kind of helps to kind of get an idea of who you are like outside of architecture. Not that it necessarily really matters, but I think it just kind of helps. But okay. And then obviously, again, just a very simple content page. And I highlighted 4 different projects. And then I have a little bit of a photography page at the end. And then this, so pretty much for every project, I start out with this kind of cover page. And so I start out with an exterior rendering, and then here just kind of the project title, the studio, and semester that it was in. This was actually a summer studio. And then just a little bit of, I don't really have that much text in my portfolio. Any text that I do have for a project is pretty much on this cover page. And then I also do highlight the programs that I used because some firms like to see that. And then I just have a sitemap on the side here. And I think just having that same cover page just creates more consistency throughout the portfolio, which definitely helps. So then here we just have some floor plans and exterior renderings. And then some interior renderings. And then, so this was a apartment unit on Mass Street. And it was kind of a crazy project. And I keep it in my portfolio, even though it's probably going to have to go away once I put my 609 project in, just because I get a lot of really good feedback. Because even though it's not we weren't really worried about like structure or anything like that. Just like the design process and the thought process that went into it. And also just like, it's kind of a funky design too. So it definitely is a good conversation starter. And then my next project was a school for the blind. This was in my, in my 508 studio. And again, just the same kind of cover page. And then here I have a sort of process / analysis kind of page, just showing how I got to the final product. And this is also, I think, a really good page to have, just because if you can show some of that process, firms really like that. One thing is, I don't know. So for every person that really likes this page, though, I will say that some people, they're like, oh, like if you're gonna get rid of a page, this is the one to get rid of. But I'm personally gonna keep it as long as I can, because I feel like, I mean, pretty much, I feel like a lot of professors will tell you that it's a good thing to have. And it's really just kind of a personal preference when it comes down to it. But okay, and then just more plans, sections, elevations, and then some interior renderings and diagrams. For this project, I did more kind of like watercolor / like color sketch renderings. And I kind of have a mix. So on some projects, I do a more realistic rendering, and on this, I did a more kind of color sketch rendering. And I think, I mean, it's really just personal preference, but I think if you can show a combination of different rendering styles, it definitely helps, because it just shows a wider range of kind of capabilities or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's your choice, and it's whatever kind of you're best at. Okay, and then some interior renderings. And then this is my very first attempt at a wall section. So there's definitely things that are not correct, but I think that still having it here, and then like when you're talking with people, you can say, oh, like this was a great like kind of first attempt. And like looking back on it now, and now that I've learned more, like here are things that I could change. I think that's kind of a nice conversation piece as well. So don't be afraid to necessarily, I would say, don't feel like you necessarily have to go back to past projects and change everything, because at the end of the day, it just can kind of show how you've grown. And then here was my design build project. This was during COVID, so it was all online. So we didn't actually get to build anything, but it was a group project. And for a group project, you can see at the bottom, I kind of highlighted my team members' names and kind of what each person did. But I have gone back, and pretty much the only thing in this project that I didn't actually do were these two elevations at the bottom. And then this gutter detail, and then these details at the very bottom. And so this project is one that I have kind of been going through and redoing some elements that other group members did, just so I feel like I can like take more ownership of them. And so I'm not like showcasing other people's work. And then this was my 608 project. Again, another kind of housing project on Mass Street. So this one's definitely not as crazy though. And yeah, lots of exterior renderings and interior renderings. And this one was a little bit hard to figure out how to compile in like 4 spreads, because there were so many just like renderings and diagrams and even floor plans. So with this one, I showed the level 1 floor plan. And then instead of showing, because I had 4 floors of residential, which were essentially all the same, I just kind of picked one of them instead of showing all 3, because that just would take up much more space and seemed a little unnecessary. So, and then we just have the typical unit floor plans and more renderings. Then more renderings, a section, and then this was a diagram just kind of highlighting some of the sustainable strategies that I used in the project. And then this is that last page, just kind of showing some like photography stuff. I'm like not like, I don't get paid to take photos or anything. It's just something that I like to do. I like to take photos of things that I like and think are fun. So I think that this, if anything, it just kind of shows, again, like kind of who you are as a person, like, oh, these are the things that interest them and that sort of thing. So yeah.
All right, thanks for sharing, Erin. Lydia, would you like to show yours?
Yeah, sure. Erin, I love that picture of the dog. I hope it was your dog. It's really cute.
Oh, thank you. His name's Teddy, so.
I cannot share my screen. Sweet, thank you. Okay, is everyone seeing that all right? Awesome. Okay, so this is my portfolio. If you want to look through it on your own, it's on issue, however you want to say it. And I'm sure everyone else's is too. But so I wanted the cover to be really simple and a lot of white space. You've heard that a lot. It helps your eye figure out where to go. And then I decided what represents me best is like a simple sketch, because I do a lot of simple sketches in my sketchbook before I even settle on what I want to do. So that's why I chose that. Just a little part. Table of contents to start, naming what we're going to be looking at, and then kind of like a design intent quote from me about why I think design is important, and kind of my ideas behind design. So yeah, like Jaden, this is I started with like my most recent and worked backwards. You don't have to do that. I just figured this is probably my most developed work and most comprehensive, and so that's why I chose it. And with every project, I start with a little summary and then like a key learning outcome for like to introduce the project, but also to show whoever's looking at this what I learned from doing the project. And most of the time it's like a soft skill thing, and not so much like I learned about a wall section, which is always true, but like a little deeper than that. What did I learn? Yeah, so this is my most recent project. I always start, well, next I always do site context to help kind of situate whoever's reading this with what's going on. And something that I think is important is if you're gonna be putting text, which I think you should do at least a little bit, just so people know what they're looking at. It's easier to see the words if you give a good amount of white space between your images and your words. And captions are really helpful too. I kind of used my text as captions for this particular thing. But I keep a similar color scheme like the other two girls throughout. This has images loading still, but usually I go site context and then kind of concept development. And yeah, there's images loading, but that's not that important. And then from there, I kind of show how the context and the concept come together in floor plans. And these are always really hard for me to show because I want to show them big so you can see like how everything interacts, but you really just don't have the space for that. Plus it's digital, so they can zoom in if they want to. Oh, and something that's helpful is if you can maybe graphically show like where you're gonna enter the building or exits, things like that. And then I've got a section. Something that I like to do with sections is have the dark part be like the base, and then it can kind of bleed off the page. I just think that looks nice. You don't have to do that. And kind of, you can still see like the similar color schemes. And then up top, I have like a index key, like a 3D one, to help orient the person with what we're looking at. And that's consistent. Elevations, wall section, that was a monster, but I think people like to see that, like to see kind of, I don't know, it's kind of advanced, and so it's cool to get to say like, I know what this is, and I know a little bit about how my building might go together if it's actually built. It's a good conversation piece. So this is like a very technical spread, and I haven't gotten any feedback on it, so I don't know if it's good or not. And then for this project, we had to do some more technical things. Decided to include that for the sake of conversation. Again, haven't gotten feedback on it yet. And then I ended with a rendering. I don't really love this, honestly. So this is one I'd like to work on, but this is my most recent thing. Moving on, you can see again, kind of a big image that I think summarizes the concept, and then the project summary, and then the key learning outcome. This is from my second year. Site context, concept development. I like to show a lot of hand things if I can, so like models or sketches, because I think that makes it more personal to me. I'm a little more excited to talk about it if I'm like, yeah, and then I had to fold this thing, and this was during COVID, so I'm like, and I also had to use my desk lamp to like do the sun path, and I don't know. To me, it just makes it a little bit more personal, and I'm a little more excited to talk about it. More concept development, and then here you can kind of see like the heavy base section thing with like the dark gray. So you can see that this is significantly less developed technically than the previous project, but you can kind of see things starting to form and ideas. And you can, I don't know why it's glitching like that, but like the index key in the top corner too is helpful. Floor plans with circulation, and then like a big image to close the project. Okay, and then this is moving, oh, this is still in my second year, a pavilion project. Context. Yeah, I've gotten good feedback on this particular spread because I've heard that it uses white space well and also shows progress well. And so something that I'm sure everyone has noticed in architecture school is you do a lot of iterations, and it's kind of cool to see the development of that over time. So I will likely be keeping this spread. More concept and concept development things, and you'll notice that the middle sketch on that right column is actually the one from the cover. And then a closing image. Next thing, it's a chapel. This one doesn't have as many spreads because it's not as developed. It was a significantly shorter project, and also still second year, so fewer things to consider at that point. But I've also gotten good feedback on this spread because I think people like to see models. I like to see models. I think they're fun. And yeah. Oh, also I chose black and white a lot of times with my models because it's really hard to get white balance right consistently throughout the whole portfolio. So I chose black and white because I'm like not messing with it anymore. And this is stuff from first year. And I actually, so I would say if you have stuff from first year that you're not excited about, then don't put it in your portfolio because you want to be excited about what you're talking about. this particular project was one of my favorites actually like ever. And so I still have it in here. I haven't heard anybody say to take it out, but it's just I think it's really fun because it shows the poetics that architecture can bring. And again, you can see like the sketches and concept development and models and stuff that I really like to do. And then personal works, so drawings and photography, also in black and white for consistency of white balance again. And then a resume. So I've had mixed feedback on this. Some people say to include it, some people say don't. I put it at the end for for some people who don't want to see it, and they don't even have to look at it. And then that's the end.
Awesome, thanks, Lydia. So with that, we'll open the floor to questions, and if nobody has one immediately, we have some compiled that we can ask as well. So if anyone has a question, feel free to type it in the chat or ask out loud.
One question I had off the bat was I was curious everyone's takes on showing other people's work, especially when you're working in a group. How would you really feel? Because I know some people want to at least put their name and say, hey, that's what they did. But I know in some interviews I did, they really didn't like that and they wanted to only show your work. So what's the best way to still show your project and highlight your work, but still also include them as to not cut them out?
I know for me, because like right now I have my 509 project in there and it is a group project. And so on my cover page, I kind of list everybody in the group's name and the main things that they worked on. But then I tried to really mainly only show the things that I did. And then some of the drawings, like for example, like the renderings, I went and like redid those so they kind of matched my own style. So I would maybe recommend doing that, just making sure you, I guess, list out who was in the group, what they did, and then kind of up to you which work you show. And like if you only show the work that you did, or if you kind of go back and redo some things, so then you can kind of claim it as your own.
Yeah, it's hard because you can't make everyone happy, which is something I continually have to learn. But I think if you have justification for the reason why you're doing something, that's always good. And also, yeah, so I didn't include my design build project because it's actually still in progress. But if I were to do that, I think I would really highlight the team dynamic that's required for a design build project. And I would highlight what I did in that, but also make sure it's really clear, like we all had to work together pretty hard in order to make that happen. I don't know, that's hard. That's kind of hard to communicate, I guess, but that's just what I think. I like the way that you did it, Erin. I like that.
I'll chime in. Sorry, my camera was off. I was eating some pizza and I didn't think y'all needed to see all that. Anyway, I just had my design build studio and we did such preliminary work that I feel like I don't have anything quite presentable enough, but that was a group project. And so I'm kind of like opting out because I honestly don't even know how to present it. But what I've heard is show what you worked on and be clear that you did what you did, but do credit everyone else.
Thank you all for your responses.
All right, I'll ask one of our questions. One of the questions we came up with was, how did you decide on the overall theme / approach of your portfolio? I know Lydia kind of delved into her idea of like maintaining a black and white kind of look with her portfolio. You guys could go deeper into that in terms of like how you approach like your color scheme, how everything flowed together, how you like obtain that cohesion.
Well, for me, I kind of, well, I experimented with a couple of different colors, and it was really just like in InDesign, like seeing, oh, which colors look good together, which was kind of just trial and error. And I came up with the orange and pink. And part of that, I kind of decided on the orange because I felt like after looking at a lot of my renderings, it kind of felt like there was sort of like a warm kind of orange tint in all of my projects. And so that felt like a good way of kind of tying that in. And then I kind of went with the pink, but it was really just, I wanted to kind of have something very simple and a lot of white space. So, which is a constant struggle. I'm still trying to get more white space. So it's a work in progress. But yeah, I don't know if that's really helpful, but.
I'll just add something to that because I kind of did the same thing. As far as fonts go, I kind of assigned, first of all, it's a good idea to not use more than like 2 fonts because then it gets like really confusing. And if you want to use 2 fonts, make them different enough that it doesn't look like you made a mistake. Does that make sense? But I chose just one font family that has like bold and thin and all of that. Because there's lots of options, but I also decided to assign like every caption will be like 50% black and size 8 or something like that. Because then it's consistent throughout the whole thing. Because architects can be detail oriented at me, and they'll notice when things like that are off. And I think it just shows. Well, for me, it makes me less stressed out, but like it also shows like attention to detail if you kind of assign a rule to things like that. Or if you're going to do, I don't know, like a grid, it's always a great idea. Try to keep that consistent because then it looks like your whole thing goes together.
Yeah, okay. Just going off of that font thing, that's huge. And like for me, character styles were definitely my friend. Like in InDesign, I would do like captions were one thing, headers were like another. So it was just really simple to like go and like decide, oh, this is a title, so it's going to be these fonts. And also like the type of font is big. For me, I feel like you can't go wrong with Century Gothic. That's what I use for literally everything. But yeah, a good font is definitely key.
I think if you have like a tight theme, like how Lydia said, where it's the same throughout for each project, you can explore different things. I mean, like keep a lot the same, so you can change one thing for each project. For me, it was I had a different color scheme for each project, and I think it communicated well and divided it up well. And I chose the colors kind of at random a little bit, like the Monument Depot, like my museum, I chose orange to be like the fun color. Like I made my entourage orange and stuff, but for like the Welcome Center, I made it blue because blue is one of KU's colors. But again, like Aaron said, like for each thing, and then change the colors of them to be like, what looks kind of nice. But it also, when you do that, it challenges you to do more white space because you don't want it to just be everything is so colorful. So it lets you tone it down quite a bit. And yeah, and I like the thing you said about going off of the rendering and choosing the color that way because it was warmer, so you chose orange. I love that. I'm gonna read what someone said in the chat. Thank you, Madison, for saying that. Is there anything that you, wait, let me read it. Is there anything that you always hope employers don't notice in your portfolio? Yeah. The having one of my huge sections a screenshot, like if they zoom in once, it's just gonna be pixelated. But stuff like spelling things wrong, I'm worried that I do that, so I will check over it a billion times. But definitely there are drawings that I would just like do last minute and connect last minute and be like, if they just don't look at that too close, they won't notice that the tree is in the wrong place and stuff like that. So totally.
Yeah, like Jaden said, definitely spelling errors, like that is something that I hope they don't see, and I hope there aren't any. That seems like there's always one. And then kind of my wall section too, especially right after my 508 studio. Now, like going into my final year, I feel like I have a little bit more experience, but still, like at the time, like I still didn't really understand my wall section, if we're going to be completely honest. And I didn't really understand my building. So I was just like, oh my goodness, please do not ask me like any super detailed questions about this, because I don't know if I'll actually be able to answer them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The wall section and spelling errors. Those are my points of weakness.
Yeah. Something that I noticed even as I was going through this, I was like, I did not label that. And so if someone's looking at this, they're gonna be like, what am I looking at? And so that's just one thing I hope they never say. It's like, what actually is this? You know, I want to be clear with what I'm putting forward. But yeah, spelling or I was actually presenting my portfolio to somebody a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about a distillery, and they were like, don't you mean brewery? And I was like, well, I don't think so, but maybe I do. I don't know. And so just things like that you may just not know. Yeah, that's always kind of hard. It's humbling. Humbling is good.
I'd say you guys are doing pretty well if the only thing you're worried about is spelling. It looks like we got a question from Caitlin. How do you walk through your portfolio with a professional in an interview, and how would that differ from presenting it in class?
I can start on that. As you saw, you need to practice, because I didn't, and you guys saw me just scramble through that. You got to think of like, what's your main concept, and then how do your drawings help bolster that concept, I think is the best way to go about it. And don't focus on the little design things like I chose this font, I chose this color and stuff like that, because it just needs to flow really well. And just act like you are the authority. They don't, and that's another thing. When you're presenting in class, your class knows what the project is. This person doesn't know anything. And so you can just start from scratch and be like, it's in, you say those bullet points I had of like when I did it, where it is, stuff like that. And I think it was Aaron that showed the programs you used, that they always ask that. They like, you did this on Revit, you did this on SketchUp. They want to know. So that is something that's, you could either write down or you can say too, but it's more programmatic and more like you're telling them the whole story. You're selling a story. It's definitely that, and less of showing your friends your cool thing. That's about it.
I would also definitely, before you, because it kind of depends. Like, I know a lot, like sometimes in interviews, they'll just say, oh, talk about like your favorite project. So like going into it, like already kind of have like, okay, if they only want me to show one project, which one is it going to be? So I would definitely recommend that. But yeah, it's really just like trying to figure out how can I explain this project in the simplest way with them still like getting all the information they need to know in a relatively short amount of time. So.
Yeah, both of those are really good points, because I think in class we've all seen it for a semester, and so we know what we're talking about, and you can say things like, and I moved the hallway over 6 inches, but like employers don't care. You really want to sell them on the general idea, and if they have specific questions, they'll ask you. And yeah, something that I try to do is show and tell what I learned, because I'm still a student. And so yeah, that's why I have those key learning outcomes. But I usually don't talk about that in class, because I take a while to reflect anyway. But yeah, I don't know. That's just a thing that's different.
I also just kind of thinking about that too. I think having like concept diagrams and just diagrams in general is really helpful, because it shows like how you can take, well, it shows like a skill. Like it shows that you can take like a really complicated idea and translate it into like a pretty simple, easy to understand diagram, which also I think they look good in your portfolio. So I would definitely recommend those. And they are really helpful, I think, when presenting to people.
So I have a good follow-up question that we've added to kind of build off. Have like one drawing or rendering or diagram, any graphic from one individual project that you feel like really guides the story of a project, or one, I guess, kind of exemplary graphic that you guys really like from each project that you think helps tell a story, and why? No.
That's okay. That's a hard one. But here, should I share my screen and like go to it? Okay, we'll go to one that I can kind of think of off the top of my head. Okay, so my design build project, I actually had a lot of diagrams. And I think it was really helpful because, I mean, there was a lot of like technical stuff about this project, but having like this is kind of like the overall construction process. So it was like 4 different kind of parts. And it was basically just exploded axons that I did in SketchUp. And so I kind of looked at each like part, and then I went into like the storage building specifically and showed like kind of the process and the different layers of that. And then kind of looking at, okay, the column wall construction, and there's like 1, 2, 3 different parts to that. And I think that was it. But yeah, I think exploded axons are pretty great. I think it's a good way of simplifying the process and the design. And I think they look nice. So, but yeah, that's fun.
I can talk about, so I had, let me find it, sorry. Okay, so I had an exploded, wait, first off, Erin, I have the same entourage that you had in one of those pictures. I was like, I know them. Okay, anyway.
I saw that. I was like, oh my, that was so like my funny. People.
This exploded axon, I've heard a lot of good stuff about, and I think it's mostly because it looks pretty, because honestly, I mean, I guess it's kind of telling you what's going on, because the whole point is like these descending and then ascending galleries, so you get an idea of what it's going on. It's just really helpful. Like, I made a building, let me explode it and show you the layers. Like, that is just an obvious thing, but I'm gonna go back to this stupid screenshot I keep talking about. And this, I feel like this section cut elevation tells you like about the descending galleries, tells you about the content of it and materiality and kind of how it's made. Like, this picture took me so stupid long, but I think it does a really good job of letting you know what's going on. And I still tried to keep the idea of like the mood that I have in the rest of my renderings, where it's like cloudy, because real quick, this museum's for like old Confederate statues and stuff, and how to represent it in a new reframed narrative kind of way. So you see like Christopher Columbus is in a pit, you know, stuff like that. So it's just like, how do you show that in a drawing and not celebrate it? And that was the whole concept. But I feel like this thing shows really well, which is why it sucks so bad. That is absolutely ginormous. And I have to screenshot it each time, because when you submit portfolios, they have to be a certain size. And do not leave it till the last second to export that bad boy, because you're going to be in tears, because it won't submit because it's too big. And what you're going to have to end up doing is making everything a JPEG and putting it on PDFs. I've done the whole thing. I need tips on that. I need tips.
Yeah, I'll quickly show one of my sections. I think sections are so informative. I totally sound like one of Todd's students because he says that like every other sentence maybe, but I think he's really, really right on that. Yeah, I think, okay, let me share it here. Yeah, section, it shows the connection to the street, the circulation through the building, the space in the alley that can be activated with, and I talk about this when I present it, but like a band or a food truck or something. And then the other space, which also connects to it. So I think sections are really good at showing like space, which is what we design. So yeah, but I also have, oh, come on now. Okay. On the left-hand side, that like little progression of sketches, I like that one because it actually like shows my thought process of, real quick, talking about trees. It was an inspiration thing. So like a leaf, and how does that develop my floor plan and my elevation, and even like how it's placed on the site. So yeah, sometimes like a progression of sketches is a good diagram.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Another question we got is, what are some of the resources that have been most valuable to you guys in helping develop your portfolio?
I think a huge thing is your peers and professors. Like, if you find a professor that you're pretty close with, you can send it to him or her and they will roast it hard. And be prepared to take what you can from that and do with it what you can with what time you have. But your peers are going to be nicer, and they'll be like, actually, that font looks weird, or that color's bad, or maybe move it a little to the left. And I found that so helpful, because if you're staring at something so long, like, you can't tell that it looks that bad because you're staring at it. So if you have fresh eyes, they can tell you real quick, and it's so helpful. That was my huge thing.
Yeah, definitely peers and professors. And also, which obviously you guys will get this feedback this year, but I know the feedback that I got from the portfolio submission and everything was very helpful. And especially from some of the actual like architects from firms. A couple of them actually left like page by page, like, oh, like this is what I would do. And so that was really helpful. And then also, it sounds kind of cliche and everything, but Pinterest was very helpful. Also looking at issue at other like example portfolios was also helpful. So yeah.
Yep, all of those things for sure. And I don't know, it's I think it's really important when you're hearing feedback to realize that you like actually want the feedback and that you want to make it better, which I think all of us really want to put forth our best work. Sometimes we can take it personally, but really if you think about it, like, I want to hear the criticism because I want this to be the best it can be. So yeah, just keep that in mind too, because sometimes it can feel like everything I create is worthless and trash, and maybe that's true, but now you know how to improve it. So
Awesome. Well, it seems like not many people have that many questions. So I'm going to ask one last question here, and that's, do you guys have any tips on updating your portfolio over the course of time?
okay, yes. I have a folder on my computer with all of my portfolios. Oh, also package your stuff. That will save all of your fonts, all of your images, PDFs. Just do that. It's so important. I don't know how many times I've gone back, like, dang, what did I do with this image from like first year? But I can find it because I packaged it. Please do that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I have a folder with like all of my portfolios, all of the editions of it. And so I can kind of open my most recent one and add or subtract without deleting everything I've done before, if that makes sense, because I have all of the editions of it. Now that's huge, like a big file thing. So I have an external hard drive that I put all of that on. Yeah, that's kind of like I guess like a logistical way that I keep my portfolio updated.
Going off of what Lydia said, I haven't learned how to package, and I bet it would help quite a bit, because I will name my pictures and drawings the most ridiculous things. I will name it just the name of the person sitting next to me, and I'll never be able to find it. I have that issue big time. Anyway, it is really helpful to look at your old edition and be like, what did I like about that? What did I not? And you can always just save as and make a whole new one and go crazy on it and then change it as needed. Like, it's really hard when you treat it like it's a really precious thing that you can't really touch, because then you won't really make any changes. And then you could be crazy like me and post every single one on issue. And so everyone can see how bad it used to be, which I did that. Don't do that. But I don't know any other additional tips. I think Lydia nailed it. I bet Erin's got some wisdom.
Yeah, packaging your project, that's great. And then also, I don't know if this is more just kind of your projects over time, and this is really a personal preference, and I could see benefits to either. But I know, like for me, like some of my older projects, I've redone like renderings and some graphic stuff in them, just because I'm look back on it and I'm like, oh, like I don't really like that. Like I want to change that. But then also like I understand, you know, you want also wanting to keep it the same in order to show like your progression and growth. So that's really like a personal decision. But and I like everything, even though they're different projects, to kind of have a similar kind of look and feel to them. So that's one reason why I do that. But you don't have to, obviously. And it's really, again, just a personal choice. But yes, definitely package your projects and save your files smartly, which is, that's a constant learning process. So.
Awesome. If there are no other questions, does anyone else want to throw one out there? Last chance. We got 3 awesome students here to answer. You can just shout it out if you want. All right. I think that's it. Thank you so much, Jaden, Lydia, Erin, for being panelists for this. I myself learned some things that I didn't know before, so I appreciate it. We have our final session 1 week from today, same time, and it will be a peer review in advance of the portfolio submission. So if you would like to get feedback on your own portfolio, I would highly recommend attending. The link should be available in the KU AIAS Instagram bio soon. You are all invited. Strongly recommend attending. So awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you guys.
Bye guys, good luck on your portfolios.